Here's a long one. Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of All Nat, brought to you by OTF. I'm your host, Natalie, but most people call me Nat. And today, I'm so excited that all these special guests keep joining my show. I feel very special and honored to have Grant Liffmann on with me today. You all know him, NBC Sports Bay Area. He brings you so much Warriors coverage. And I'm happy Grant decided to join me on the show today from Dallas at the airport. Look at this. Wow. I feel truly special. Thanks, Grant. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me. And in Dallas right here, just, it's the day after, game 4, where the Warriors lost in Dallas. They could have clinched. That's why I was out here. But, it's all good. You get to clinch at home. That's what the plan is, at least. And Nat, thanks for having me. I've heard about everyone coming on this, and I was waiting for my invitation, and I finally got it, and here I am.
Yeah, sure. Talk me up nice. I appreciate it, but I'll accept it. Let's get right into it. Last night's game, you were there in person. The Warriors had a chance to sweep, and throughout this whole postseason, every time they have a chance to close out a series, the first one doesn't really go the way I think they would like, or the fans. What was it like, though, yesterday at the game? Because it was kind of a weird day. A lot happened in the news. Steve Kerr had a presser prior to the game, and he was not interested in talking about basketball. I think anyone who's a Warriors fan and is familiar with Steve Kerr knows the history with his father. So guns and this area that's like plaguing the US is something that's really dear to his heart and he's passionate about. So he spoke about it. He wants change, gun reform, and he dedicated the time to speaking about that, and rather than talking about what was going to be coming up for the game. The shooting yesterday occurred in Texas, not actually near Dallas, but in the same state. So I don't know what it was like in the arena. Was it any different? I know Steph mentioned that it was on their minds, before they played. So what was it like being there and just being around the team?
Yeah, no, it was surreal. I think everyone was a little shocked by the news in general, right? It didn't even matter if it was in Texas or not. It was anytime this happens, and it's sad that that this is a multiple time thing, but when this happens, it's just a shock to the system, and everyone was hurt. And you have to remember, for the Warriors especially, a lot of them are veterans that have families with kids, and while they have a lot of youngsters on their team, they do have a lot of people that do have children, and obviously anyone who has children could probably hit them even harder, obviously, to relate to. But it was surreal in that people just didn't know necessarily how to feel, right? You have the energy of a playoff game, but at the same time, you have such a horrible, horrible event that happened, and it makes you kind of rethink of why you're putting your energy into, a game at the end of the day. But before the game started, and this, I think the shooting was about 400-ish miles away from Dallas. Before the game started, they addressed the shooting. The PA announcer came on, did a moment of silence, but also just when he spoke about it, his voice was cracked. You could see how emotional he was. So it definitely hit close to home, figuratively and literally. And it was hard. But while it was hard on the Warriors, obviously they care so much about this issue, and they were deeply affected by it. It affected, the Dallas Mavericks team just as much. So anyone who's kind of saying how the Warriors might have been emotionally distracted, yeah, sure. But it's a good chance the Mavericks were too. And
Right.
Once the game started, though, Nat, it was, people kind of were able to distract themselves just for a little bit and kind of focus in on the game.
Okay. Were you expecting them based on the way they've kind of been going throughout the postseason. Did you think they were going to be able to pull off closing this out in four? Because I mean, they did their job by just winning one on the road, right? That's the biggest goal, but I'm sure they would have liked to close it out, especially with like injuries to Otto. It seemed like something happened with Steph's thigh in the game. I think, I don't know, Andrew may have tweaked his ankle or something, not last night, but some point in this series. So I'm sure they would have just liked to end it, but I also don't know if they really wanted 8 days off. I'm not sure, So I mean, what were you thinking going into the game?
I know a lot of people were confident that it was going to be a sweep, but I personally wasn't. I've watched this team for a long time, and I kind of know how they function. And as much as they can talk themselves up into, being energetic and being in it, at the end of the day, you have to look more on the Mavs side. This to them was everything. This is their pride on the line. You don't want to be swept, right? And people are already making fun of you and ragging on you. And these guys, they've had open looks in this series, and finally they started hitting. And role players usually play better at home, so it was only a matter of time before one of these games happened, and it happened to happen this time. It kind of reminds me of the finals in which the Warriors won in 5 against the Cavs when everyone was thinking sweep, 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 and then game 4 happens, and I think the Cavs hit like a playoff record amount of threes,
Right.
and they won, and then everyone goes, okay, well now the Warriors are going to win at home. Kind of has that feeling. Obviously, the Warriors need to come out firing on
Right.
on Thursday, but at the end of the day, I wasn't surprised at all about the loss. Actually, to be fair, I was actually surprised at the energy and the effort they put in at the beginning of the game. I thought they were like, hey, it was good to see them show up like that, but yeah, they couldn't hold that pace.
Yeah, because I thought they actually started off pretty good. I mean, they could have probably closed the first quarter a little better, but they were only down 4, but I thought that their energy was pretty good. I saw some people saying like they were just like low energy all night, and I didn't actually agree with that. I thought that they started off well. I kind of felt like, even though it wasn't substantial, that the deficit that they got into in the second quarter with the bench, when the starters came back in, I felt like they just didn't have it to like overcome that, right? Like it wasn't that large initially, but I think it might have been like around 15 points in that range. But they didn't seem to have it, and then it just kind of got larger from there. But I thought they started off good too, as well. And it's interesting because in game 2, the Mavs sort of shot like that too, but in Chase. And people are like, they're not going to make 20 plus threes again, because I was like, well, the role players are going to play better at home. But people are like, 23s, like, you know how hard that is to do. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right, but they'll still play better at home. But then did they match that? They had more than 20 last night, right?
Was
I know
it
they got
20,
to
21?
19. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the difference is, though, it's like it's going to be a lot easier for the Warriors, I think, to pull off a comeback in Chase than it is like in Dallas without having their home crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. The Warriors are really playing well this season at Chase, and in the playoffs are undefeated at Chase. With the Dallas Mavericks hitting so many threes, 20 plus, they have to be a little discouraged by the fact that despite all of that, they've done it in 2 games, and they lost the first one. And the second one, the bench of the Warriors comes all the way back and storms back, and potentially, had a chance to pull off the craziest upset ever. But that has to be kind of demoralizing for them, and at the same time for the Warriors, encouraging the fact that they know that Bullock can hit some threes, Brunson can hit some threes, Dorian Finney-Smith can hit some threes, and they can do all that. I'm not saying they should allow the Mavs to make over 20 of them,
right?
But the fact is, if they make a lot of them, they still can beat the Mavericks.
Yeah.
So I think that must be something that encourages the Warriors a little bit.
Well, let's talk about that. When we thought the game was over, because I mean, we're on Twitter, NBA Twitter, we're tweeting like, all right, next game, whatever. And the lead just keeps, decreasing and decreasing. Because, it started first where like the Mavs bench, and I think maybe just like one of the starters were in. I can't remember who, but it seemed like Kid took everyone out. And then it was like, okay, he got the rest of his starters back in, but Luka, because it was making him nervous. And the lead just kept going down and going down. So now he finally goes to get Luka back in. And I'm like, this is crazy. But Kerr is still like, all right, I'm chilling. I'm just going to let this play out. And then they get the lead down to 8. And it's like, okay, so what do you do at this point? Do you agree with Kerr's decision to like bring Steph and Wiggs, and I think it was Clay back in, or do you think he should have just let the guys who got the lead down finish out the game?
I'm 100% in the camp of bringing those guys back in, 100%. And I know there's question marks, and I do understand. Like in retrospect, you look back and you go, well, maybe those guys would have kept on doing it. But the last thing I would want to do as a head coach is look back and be like, what if I brought in my best players? And that's what these guys are, his best players, right?
Right.
And even if they didn't really have it that game, you don't want to sit there and be like, well, we got down to 8. What if I brought in Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and the guys who are some of the best players in the history of playoff basketball as well? So I'm always here for it, and I liked it. Obviously, because no one got hurt, then we can also look back and say it was a good move as well, because if someone were to have gotten hurt,
Right.
then you would have a huge question marks. But I have to tell you, when I was in the arena, and first of all, I want to give some credit to Mavs fans. They brought it. They were all, they were excited during the game. There's these 2 fans in front of me, and I have my computer open sitting at my workstation. It has a Warriors logo on it. And these guys kept on turning around and like in a good way, kind of like, giving me a hard time, just saying how I'll see you back in San Francisco. And this is, mind you, at the end of the third quarter, see you back in San Francisco, kind of like talking a little trash and all this stuff. And as the lead starts dwindling and dwindling, you can see these guys start kind of like peeking back, looking back at me. And I'm just shaking my head, just like enjoying it. Then all of a sudden it gets down to 8, and these dudes turn around, both of them, they go, man, I'm sorry. They were like, yeah, like, oh, my bad. Yeah. And they were like, and I never said a word the whole time, but these dudes were just there. They like couldn't believe what they were watching. The whole crowd was silent. You couldn't hear a pin drop in there. It was actually, I think a few Mavs fans almost like kind of cheering it on because they were just so in disbelief of what was happening.
Right.
So yeah, it was a really unique experience in that arena.
Yeah, I supported the decision too. Because I just don't think, because I think like 2 of the next possessions, right? Well, I mean, they brought Steph and Wiggs in, and then like, I don't know, there was just a complete like defensive collapse, and they let Luka get like he got to the rim. I have to go back and look at that play because I actually don't know whose fault it is. It actually might have been Steph's, but Luka got like a layup right to the rim, right? And then, but then on the next possession, I think it was Kuminga who got the charge call. I think that was the order. And then I think after that, then the next possession was like Jordan, and he was doing all the dribbling, and I don't know, but it resulted in a turnover. And I was like, that's why you bring Steph and Andrew Wiggins back into the game, because it's one thing to get a lead down and they're hustling, and now it's another thing to like execute in closing time. And you have Luka on the other side of the court, like he's gonna take full advantage of their inexperience. And so I like the idea of you kind of bring like your 2 best players right now in the series, and that it has been Steph and Andrew, and then you understand Clay for the scoring as well, and then you mix it with some of the young guys and you see what happens. So I thought it was a good decision. And I know that I'm known to be a Steve Kerr critic, but like I was in total agreement with him. So I, whatever, it wasn't meant to be, but I liked it. But I also thought it was huge for them to do that, right? Like the young guys, like to come in. I mean, Kuminga just has so much promise. Moody hit some big threes. It was just very impressive, combined with Jordan. Do you think that like just gives them more confidence? Do you think it also means that we'd see them more if the Warriors do advance to the finals? What are your thoughts on that?
It was massive, and I actually truly mean that. And I know someone might say that's silly because they already had a 3-0 lead, like, oh, boo-hoo, they lost. But no, it was a pretty demoralizing loss there for a little bit. And not that they wouldn't have been able to come back the next time and have their emotional, all their emotions in it, but it was just one of those losses. While it wasn't as bad as the Memphis game where they got blown out by 400 points, it was still one of those games where like, why are we just not executing right? Why are we just not doing this?
Right.
And when those guys come in for the fourth quarter, everyone was kind of down, heads down. No one's talking to each other on the bench. You could just feel it. It was just a really awkward interaction there, and everyone just felt a little weird and uncomfortable. And these guys just stormed back, and I'm telling you, the bench was into it. Andre and these guys are clapping, pumping their fists.
Yeah.
Everyone was just really feeling it. And so even though they didn't pull it off in the end, that Warriors team had a completely different vibe after that game that they could have been. And they were optimistic and they were jovial. And even in the hallway afterwards, they were laughing and having a good day. It wasn't like one of those losses where you just say, everyone just shut up and just kind of like go about your business. Everything was chill because they made that comeback and made them feel good again. And so again, there's no such thing, especially in the playoffs, as a moral victory. But I will say that fourth quarter by itself was a moral, let's say, boost for making the Warriors feel good going back home.
Yeah, for sure. I remember seeing the guys, like I think I tweeted, I was just like, oh, look at the starters, like cheering them on. And then Steph said some really complimentary things about them after the game as well. So that has to feel good, like hearing that come from one of your leaders. So yeah, all around, I loved it. Kuminga looked a little disappointed when he went to the bench. And I remember tweeting like, you did a good job, Kuminga. Not like he can hear me, but I thought it was good stuff. I did. Clay also looked a little annoyed at one point when he got taken out the game. Do you think that's just like normal? Like he wants to play, he wants to be in there, or because it's a little bit of a rough series for him, or he hasn't been starting strong. Maybe that's a better because he hasn't been starting strong, but then he's kind of come alive in the second half and hit some shots. So do you think he's like frustrated by that, or I don't know, but he seemed to be annoyed when he was taking out the game at one point.
I mean, yeah, he's such a competitor, right? He is just absolute hooper, and it kills him that he's either not contributing or the team's losing or whatever. And so it's just pure frustration at this point because the guy just wants to win so badly. He wants to contribute too. He really takes it on himself to say, I contributed to this win. And for him, it's just, frankly, of course, Clay is not the exact same player he was before the injury. That's going to take a little time. But more importantly, I just want to give credit to the Mavs. What they're trying to do is take away any chance that Klay Thompson gets an open 3-point look. That is their entire goal with Klay Thompson, is do not let him take a three that is a good look. There's a fly attacking.
I could see it in the screen.
Yes, those Dallas flies, I'm telling you, it's Texas. But yeah, it was just, Mavericks have done such a good job about just making sure he's not in rhythm from three. And you know what? That's fine. That's their game plan, and they're doing it, and they're doing a good job. That's kind of what the Mavericks are good at. You think about their switchability and the fact that they have a bunch of wings that can kind of, spread out and rotate and do all those things. That is their perimeter defense, is probably their bread and butter, right? They're definitely not rim defense. So Clay's just been a victim of that. And unfortunately, with that, even when he gets an open look, it's taking a little bit of time to get going. But the Warriors are taking advantage of every other aspect on offense because the Mavericks are playing so up in front of Clay.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's a little similar to what we tried to do with the Grizzlies by taking Bane out of it, right?
Yep, exactly.
So it's a very similar strategy. I'm predicting an early game 6 Clay. So game 5 Clay for the next game. That's my prediction.
I like that. I like that.
Did you find it interesting at all that when when Kerr did go to bring, the starters back in, that he didn't bring Draymond back as one of them.
I was thinking about that, and to me, when you think about Draymond and the injuries he's dealt with his lower back and everything, I'm assuming part of that went into the equation, where you don't want to sit for a while and ice a back and do whatever you're doing and then just could be like, oh, all of a sudden go back in there and start going. It wasn't worth it. And I think Draymond's the one that I would have been most worried about his injury recently with that situation. So to me, it wasn't a big surprise. And not only that, let's be honest, like what they needed at that point was some electric offense and
Right.
3-pointers, and he wasn't the guy that was going to bring that. And so maybe if it got down to 4 or 2 and they needed defensive stops, maybe they would have thought about it more, but it didn't make sense at that point. So I was actually, I thought it was a right move to bring the other guys in, I actually think it was also the right move not to bring Draymond back in.
Yeah, I agree too. And I mean, I don't have a sense at all, like if he cared or not. He just looks really serious after the game. Like the camera like flashed on him and he just had like a super serious expression on. And like, I know when they lost in Memphis, he's like, whoop that trick and dancing. So granted, it was a different kind of day, but I just didn't know like it could be nothing or if he didn't like that. So I didn't have a sense. And I actually didn't get to hear any of the post game yesterday. I went to bed really early because sometimes people forget I'm an East Coast Warriors fan, and staying up late all the time. Sometimes there's usually like after a number of games, there's just a day that like I crash because I've been up late too many times. And that happened to be last night. So I really missed a lot after the game.
Yeah, no, it first of all, I do think about the East Coast fans and what they have to deal with, because really you guys are real troopers, the Dub Nation on the East Coast, to have to listen to like, what is that, till 12:30 at night almost every time, most games, right?
Usually after a Warriors game, I'm probably not in bed till around, when you take into account, then I have to tweet and kind of terrorize the timeline and, whatever I do. It's probably like anywhere from like 2 to 3 in the morning over here by the time I'm like in bed.
What you meant to say was when you stay up all night to watch my show. That's what you must have cut out when you said that part. Yeah, exactly, for sure.
No, but that actually truly is part of it, because normally after the game, what I'm doing is I'm taking in like everything that like is being put out, right? So I watch the show, I listen to the post game, I see what people are tweeting. So no, seriously, it's just all the after stuff,
Yeah. No.
And so yeah.
I'm just messing.
No, it's okay. Sure. But obviously, no, I have to have you on because I love your show. So stop it.
Thanks, Nat. I appreciate
that. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't really think too much about this loss. Like, I was like, okay, they'll go home and win it. And that's probably better, because not better in terms of like, I just don't like having to play extra games, but better in terms of like, if they win and clinch a finals berth in front of like at Chase at home, it'll be more meaningful, especially the number of years that have gone by because of injuries and they haven't even been in the postseason. And, I think it would be really meaningful there. And hey, Leg Up gets some extra revenue and the fans at home get another game, which I think some of them wanted. So there's positives to it.
There are, and it would easily be the biggest moment in the history of Chase Center, right? And so I think it's cool to have that happen if they can. By the way, there's still an if.
Right.
I know we're all writing it off as if it's gonna happen, but you never know. Things get crazy, but yeah, if it does happen, it would be the biggest moment in Chase Center. And yes, there is some extra revenue. So there are positives that do come from it. It was weird because you have to also think about this. Before the game, I was overhearing the TNT crew and ESPN, and everyone's discussing, like, if the Warriors win, are we bringing this whole ceremony and stage onto the court here at Dallas? And everyone's like, I guess so. I don't know. It feels a little weird. And that awkwardness won't exist at Chase. So yeah, right. There are plenty of positives that could come if they are able to win it. So we can all glass half full it as long as they win it game 5.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the other big topic, at least on NBA Twitter, is this new potential hardware, the Western Conference Finals MVP, right? There's been a lot of talk about Steph, Andrew Wiggins, maybe even Kevon Looney. So there's a part of the fan base that's like, I know they're going to screw over Steph. They're just not going to give it to him. They're going to find a way for someone else to win it. And then like, there's just the idea of like, is there merit in someone else besides Steph winning it? So what are your thoughts on just, first of all, the new award, just the thoughts about it? Secondly, do you think right now there's a clear-cut person on the Warriors who should, be getting it? And if not, like, if there's not, who do you think are really the potential people that could be under consideration if they close it, in 5?
Yeah,
and would you ever consider the opposing team? That's another one too.
So to begin with, I don't mind the award. It's, whatever. It's just something else for everyone to kind of discuss and have fun with. And, sure, if it, then yeah, this might be a chance to honor somebody and just kind of create a new ability to reward someone for their efforts during a series. Maybe it's not the star, or maybe, it's somebody else. But I'll just make this very clear. I don't know what would have to happen the rest of the series for me not to say Steph Curry for MVP. As long as the Warriors win, of course. No, I do not believe that the other team should have a most valuable player. Even if you lose, especially in a dominant fashion, maybe if it went to 7 and Luka just tears it up all the way and forces it to 7, then sure, maybe you can consider that. But as it is structured right now, let's say they win in 5, the Warriors. I wouldn't give it to another team. But to me, it's hands down right now Steph Curry, and it's not particularly close in mine. I love what Andrew Wiggins has done. Really has stepped up, played really nice series in so many different fashions. Kevon Looney, what a cool story, and he's playing better than ever. And the way he's doing it, it's so impressive. Just these guys are helping the Warriors win. But there is no question who's the most valuable player for this series. And I'm not even talking in general. Obviously, we know who the MVP is for the Warriors forever. But in this series, you just watch this series and the way Dallas is playing Steph and the way, Wiggins is getting some looks and stuff, and the way Kevon is able to do what he's doing is partly because of Steph Curry.
Right.
And he's doing his part on the defensive end too. Look at his it's not close to me.
His defense has just really been something to marvel at,
Seriously.
I'm so impressed with him. Because he's out there telling guys where to be too. There's just so many little aspects of it that I don't think people are noticing. And I think it's pretty impressive.
I agree. I think, the thing that was against Steph forever, and by the way, remember, Steph Curry led the league in steals at one point.
Yeah.
And, when you think about it, he wasn't even that great of a defender at that point. He was pretty good, but he was more of a risk taker, right? He would reach a lot, draw a lot.
Yes.
So many fouls that everyone was like, please stop reaching.
Yeah.
But nowadays, his strength and his awareness on defense, he just makes it uncomfortable for opposing players. It's no one's just burning him off the dribble. And he's not just putting his hands in trying to get the ball. Instead, he's just stopping the momentum of a team, making a player uncomfortable, moving him off the block. That's the type of stuff that makes a real defender. Maybe it's not as sexy on paper, but it's when you watch a game and you see the results, it's really his best defense by far of his career.
It is. It definitely is. Do you have any concerns about Jordan? Because there seems to be sort of a pattern with him in all the series so far. He starts off hot, and I would say definitely in the first 2 series, they made some adjustments. And Denver, they put Aaron Gordon on him, and that seemed to bother him a little bit. And the series didn't go long enough to see, would he have figured that out? And then similar a little bit in the Grizzlies series. They just had a lot more length anyway. So when you bring Steven Adams back plus JJJ, you could just see both him and Steph were deterred from getting to the rim, right? In this series, he's been sort of on and off, but there's just a lot of dribbling into traffic. There's a lot of dribbling all around, falling on the floor. He'll lose his handle. And I mean, I know the game probably has to slow down for him some still, but you know, if the Warriors are to advance and you consider the two potential teams they could play who are like defensive juggernauts, do you have any concern about him potentially in the finals and like what you're seeing from him right now on the court?
Yeah, so against the Mavericks, I've actually been really okay with the way he's played, especially I love the first two games, especially because he only took 4 3-pointers in both of them and yet made a major impact on the way he was just cutting to the rim and doing those things. Sure, there are times he dribbles too much and maybe he loses his handle or slips around to make some reckless plays. That's just kind of comes with it. And there's going to be games, like just games where he just doesn't have it defensively too. And that's kind of where he's at in his career, right? We have these expectations for him now of being this guy that's just the perfect player, but he's just not that yet. But
Right.
he's a guy who has the ability to be an absolute star in this league, and you're seeing his rise to that. When it comes to next series, though, like if the Warriors and it just
I know I keep saying if we both
I
been
know.
saying it.
You've been great about it, and it bothers me. The one thing that bothered me about them losing Game 4 is that I have to keep on saying if, and I just want to say okay. So if they go to the finals, I think Boston would be an incredibly hard matchup for Jordan Poole's game, especially on offense. I think their length and versatility and ability to guard the rim, it's a very, very tough matchup, especially with someone as physical as Marcus Smart or the length of a Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. Derek White's a good defender. So I could see Jordan really having to really lock in and tone down the way he dribbles and the way he moves out there and maybe change his game a little bit. Against Miami, it's kind of hard to know. I do think personally the Warriors match up a lot better against Miami, especially offensively. I think when you look at the best lineups that Miami has when they put out there, Jordan has the ability to go by a lot of those guys and get into that second level. And then from there, he can kind of figure out what he needs to do. Against Boston, they're so good on all the different levels that it would be more of a struggle for him, I think, in my opinion.
Okay, well, I mean, you just took me right into the next segment, which was just going to be, who would you prefer the Warriors play? And that could be based on like just a favorable matchup or just your own entertainment. Like, which one would you enjoy watching? And do you think they have a preference in terms of which team that they would want to play?
They would never admit it, but I do believe they would rather play Miami at the end of the day. Just the physicality and the length of the Boston defense, it's tough. Now, having said that, in terms of the matchup, Boston's defense would probably do well against the Warriors, but I actually think the Warriors defense would do very well against Boston. The way they do a lot of one-on-one and the way they are able to just kind of, it's like Jason Tatum against his defender. It's Jaylen Brown against his defender. I actually think the Warriors could do okay against that, especially because they would be able to, kind of rotate through guys. Now, would Boston try to bring out, switch, have Jordan Poole on Jason Tatum and stuff? Yes. And they would try to do that, but any team's going to do that.
Right.
So I think those actually could be pretty low scoring affair between those two if they play each other. Versus Miami, again, I think matchup wise, it would be just a lot of fun. I would love to see that one because I think it would probably have more potential to be kind of high scoring and just kind of like back and forth a little bit as long as everyone's healthy. Jimmy Butler out there and Bam Adebayo both bring some toughness, and that would be just fun to play off of Draymond and all that. But I would guess the Warriors would feel more comfortable playing Miami, but I would say they're confident playing either. But yeah, that'd be my guess. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I want the Celtics, even though I do believe that would be the harder matchup as well. When I had Bonte on the show, we talked about this. He's like, I don't want to see the Celtics. And this is like when the Bucks were still around, And I was just like, yeah, I know. And when Andy was on the show too, Like he was like the only team that really worries him still, maybe a little bit more, is the Bucks. And I was just like, yeah, I gotta tell you, I think it's the Celtics. Their defense is so, because the way that I sort of looked at the Bucks is similar to like what happened in the Celtics series, where like, especially with Middleton being out, and Middleton probably would have been back if they were to advance all the way to the finals. But regardless, in a series versus the Warriors, they would need Drew to be great offensively, like throughout the series. And that's a hard thing to ask him to do. Like when I say great, meaning like efficient, 20 plus, and also guard who he has to guard on a nightly basis, right? I mean, out there running around, like if you're putting him on Steph or any of our guards, really, I mean, Clay, Poole, he's out there running around. That's just a lot, and it takes away from his offensive game. So I always thought like that was going to be the potential to like what would hurt them in a series with us, because it's just a lot to keep up with. And I wasn't sure that like Middleton and Drew could like give you what they needed to, like, over the series. And they have a great defense too, but Boston's defense scares me a little bit more. And so, you don't, you don't really, Rob Williams is real, but like, you don't have to worry about like their bigs. It's a little bit different. So,
well, Al Horford's having a really, really nice postseason too. So
incredible postseason.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
That hurts me because I wanted Al Horford. Like I didn't know that we had any way to get him, but in the offseason, I was like, I would love it if Al Horford came to the Warriors.
I can promise you the Warriors wanted Al Horford too. It just wasn't able to be able to done with the money he makes. But
imagine him. I mean, we're in the middle of a series. I don't want to do that, but just he's such a perfect fit, I think, on the spot.
He was like made for this team.
And the kind of guy, Kerr would be like, I trust him. I want him out there.
Al Horford is like the quintessential player for the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, I think the part of the reason I would say yes to the Celtics is I think that would be a hell of a series too. So, I'm really, I know this is kind of a boring answer. I'm really down for either team. In terms of traveling, I've never been to Boston, so there's that. But I also have had a lot of fun in Miami. I've had a lot of fun in Miami. So I don't know.
I'm going to either one. Like I'm going to make on the East Coast, not in the Bay, because I was there earlier in January. So it's funny because I have to go down to Florida for a baby shower. That's the weekend after games 3 and 4, which if it was in Miami, it would be there. So that's ideal.
Perfect.
But I actually really love the Celtics. They're kind of like my low-key East team.
Nice.
So, and I've been to TD Garden a number of times. It's a really fun arena. And I just like the matchups between the Warriors. Like over the past few years in the regular season, they're just some of the best matchups. When Kyrie was on the team, you had like that Steph Kyrie battle, then like the Steph Tatum battle. The games are just close. They're good. I don't know. I feel so bad because the Heat feels like no one respects them. And they are a formidable team, but I'm just not that interested in them. Like I am more interested in the Warriors and the Celtics, and that's what I want it to be, admittedly.
Yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from. I really don't have a strong opinion when it comes to one or the other. I think either one would be a really, really tough matchup. And I'm not kidding with you when I say that I don't know yet what my prediction would be for either of them. I think either of them, I would have it going 6 or 7 games. But listen, there's a chance I might not even pick the Warriors in 7. I could pick another team. I don't know. I want to see how the rest of these series play out, who's healthy and all that. I have to really think about it more, but it would be an incredible series no matter what. No team is going to dominate the other one, depending who it is.
Sure.
If the Warriors go to the final.
Both teams have the potential to get very stagnant offensively, the Heat and the Celtics, which bodes well for the Warriors, I think. But so the Warriors, when they want to, can still play really great defense, but they don't do it consistently over the game like either of those two teams. And so it's like, right now, you probably have to say both of those teams are better defensive teams than the Warriors, but
Yeah.
I think we know the Warriors have the ability to play like that, but the
Well,
Warriors are
also,
for sure the better offense.
Yeah, the firepower on the Warriors when they go is definitely better offense. I would say that if you're the Celtics, you go, well, our defense is kind of built to face an offense like the Warriors a little bit. So they could feel good about that. One caveat we're not, addressing is that, there's a chance that Gary Payton, Otto Porter, and Andre Iguodala are available for the finals. Defensively, that changes a lot. And so if you could get those guys out there, sure, you probably get hit on offense a little bit, especially if Gary's coming back. I have no idea if he'll be able to shoot the ball. Right. But if you get those guys in there, man, it would just be a war of attrition. And you put those dudes out there and it would be a fight. So, I'm so intrigued by it. The health part, the what ifs on that, and let's not forget the Celtics and the Heat have been dealing with so many injuries too. So all we got to do is cross our fingers that all these teams are healthy when a time comes, because there's nothing worse than the what ifs or this and that. I want to see all teams healthy. I want to see the best of the best play each other, because that's why we watch basketball. That's why we watch all of this. So I'm excited for it, and that's the only disappointment I had about Game 4 is that I can't mentally move on to just focus on the finals now.
Right.
And everything, of course, Nat, is about me, and that's all.
I thought it was about me.
Oh, okay, about us, and so we are disappointed. But no, if they can just close it out, Game 5, then they get to sit there and watch the Heat and Celtics and just hone in and see what they want to do. And oh man, it's gonna be fun.
It is. Okay, we're about to wrap. Do you think, I'm glad you brought up Otto though, do you think that we're gonna see him at all in this series again?
If there's any reason for them to believe that he could re-injure it on Game 5, I do not think we'll see him. I don't, and I agree with the decision if they do. It's the type of thing, if they can't win Game 5, they're going to need him for Game 6 and 7 to lock in. And so for me, if there's any concern that this is something that could linger if he like re-injures it, or if it's too weak right now, I would out of caution. And that's not just saying like, oh, I don't think the Mavericks stand a chance even without him. No, I think he could help a lot against these Mavericks
for sure.
But I think it matters. You have to kind of take a long. This is the one thing that helps by going up 3-0 or now 3-1 is you do have the ability to kind of think a little bit further in the future. So if I had to guess right now, I say he doesn't play, but the Warriors made it sound like there was a chance he played last game. So I guess there still is a chance he plays next game.
Okay. Yeah. My instinct too is telling me that he's probably not going to play, but we'll see. All right. Final question. I want to know predictions, but before we do, I just have a quick word from one of my partners, or it's Loop. Hoop junkies, take your love for the game to the next level and download the Loop app to be a part of one of the fastest growing sports communities. Loop provides sports cards for lovers of the game and card collectors everywhere. Use my personal link, Loop, spelled Loupe. See, it's a tricky one. LOUPE .cards/Natfluential. LOUPE.cards/Natfluential, and get $20 to make your first purchase in the Loop app. Okay. The description and the link is available, of course, in the description for the show, wherever you get your podcast. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, also in the description. All right. Grant, are you ready? Give me your final predictions for this series with the Warriors and also for the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay. I was going to be like, I just told you I'm not doing the finals. Okay. Okay. Western Conference and Eastern Conference. Okay. I'm going to say Warriors win in 5. I think they're going to show up big time. I think the Mavs are actually going to make a fight out of it. I really do. I do. But yeah, I think the Warriors will lock in and realize it's almost like a must win in their eyes, because you do not want to go back for a game 6 and give the Dallas Mavericks actual hope
Right.
for winning. They're still hanging on by a thread right now. You just gotta just rip that thread. Anyway, so that's for one side. On the other side, man, has there ever been a more confusing series like in the history of basketball? Like it's a blowout one way, blowout the other way, blowout one way, blowout the other way. I still think before this series I said it goes 7. I do think it goes 7, but now after watching everything and seeing where health is, I think I'm going to go Celtics in 7, but it's just, man, it's tough. It really is tough, because that means Celtics would obviously have to take one more in Miami. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Celtics in 7. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I picked initially Celtics in 6 only because I felt like they needed to win in 6 to win the series. I don't know if that's true anymore. I mean, they have these blowouts, which is not like the last series. But with the Bucks, when they face the Bucks, but it's similar in that each team is one game, then the next team wins, and the next team, right? So no team has showed yet the ability to win 2 in a row, but they've both shown the ability to win each other's home court. So because I've seen that, I could see definitely 7-2, but yeah, I'm still going with the Celtics. And it's obviously, like you said, health permitting, because both teams are dealing with injuries like where guys go out in the game, then they come back in, or they start and then they don't finish, then they play one game, then they don't play the third. So it's a very they're managing a lot of health stuff right now. So, I don't know if that will change. I know Tyler Hero was out the last game with a groin injury. Those aren't usually like a one day kind of thing. So that's a huge loss for the Heat. So I don't know, but yeah, I'm going with Celtics. I'm still hedging 6 or 7, but I think I'm going to go with the Celtics as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Either way, I'm just excited to watch it. I just would love to see a game that gets down to the wire at some point.
Right? That would be really good. Okay, and I think I lied a little bit because one last thing just popped into my head. But any thoughts on like the all NBA teams when they came out? Did you think? Obviously, I'm only concerned about like Steph, right? Yeah. So we could you don't have to tackle the whole thing. But do you think I kind of have a sense of why the voters had him second team. I don't agree with it, but I'm wondering where you landed on what you thought when you saw the teams.
Yeah, it's obviously a bigger argument, but like I do think there are flaws to it. The fact that Joel Embiid, who easily could have won MVP this year, was on the second team. It just doesn't make sense. So that's why positions, it's hard in today's game to have positions versus other ones, whatever. But for Steph Curry, I didn't mind it. I truly didn't mind him being on the second team. He set standards for himself, right? He has standards that he has set that people expect out of him now. And that's just his own doing, being that good, being one of the best players in the history of the game. And by his standards, offensively, he wasn't technically as good as he has been in the past. It's just facts. I'm not saying he wasn't good. I would still take him as potentially, one of the top whatever best player. He's still Steph Curry, right? I still think he's the exact same guy, but it's a regular season award and he missed quite a few games. And I know other guys did too. So I don't mind it. I would have been very disappointed if he fell to third team, but putting him on a squad with John Morant, who had a really good regular season too. And I don't think it's a slight. It really isn't. And again, I know all NBA teams mean a lot for contracts, and I know people care about it a lot, but sometimes it's just an award that whoever had the best narratives going through the season, et cetera. And the fact that Steph wasn't putting up ungodly numbers like he normally does, I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much, but maybe I'm just unique in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I was prepared for it, so I wasn't shocked. It's funny. I think the day before I had tweeted like Steph is probably going to be second team this year. But what I didn't like is what I don't like a lot about NBA awards is that recency bias really determines a lot. And so, because I even had Vince Goodwill on my show and, he like he told me like his rationale, because he's a voter, and so he told me back like right after votes got submitted, and he explained that, you know, even though he knows Luka had like a slow start, then he kind of like picked up, and so it's like he thinks like that's more representative of like, I don't know, their season or who they are as a player. And I was like, so does the fact that Steph had a hot start and was like in the MVP conversation get disregarded because he only played one less game than Luka, and their numbers aren't really drastically different. And I was like, so Steph had a slump, right, in the season, which I felt was really like used against him, penalized for. But so comparing him to his own standards, he was below his level, but compared against the field, right? Like who he was going against,
it's still Steph Curry.
Right. He was still on par with all the other guards. Yeah. And so it felt like you were penalizing him for not being Steph Curry versus whether he actually had a better or comparable season to the others.
Exactly.
And I felt like, you know, because like Luka missed a lot of games, but they were at the beginning of the year. And same thing for like, you know, Devin Booker, but they all played the end of the season, and Luka had a lot of big games. Devin Booker had a lot of big games. And there was also the big push for Devin Booker because he wasn't going to be in the MVP combo, but his team was number one and they won 64 games. So I was just like, they're just going to give it to him, you know, not saying that he wasn't worthy, but I felt like those things is why Steph didn't get picked. And I think that's a little unfair because when you look at each of their seasons, especially when you look at things like impact metrics, when I know not everyone digs into that, but Steph's impact is still quite superior to the other two. So I still thought he should have got it. I didn't think he would, but you know, obviously second team is still a great accomplishment. So
yeah, no, I do. It is a lot of recency bias. There's narratives that go into this. There's just, if Steph started out the season in a slump and then played incredible and then got hurt, maybe he would have made first, you know, just the order of things, right? When he got hurt, when did the Warriors struggle? When were they good? Right. And people saw the struggles of the Warriors for so long. And yeah, it's just, it's based on that. So, and the other thing is this, and this is just, it's a sad part of all these awards. And this is mostly applies to MVPs, but it also applies to all NBA as well. People get bored of picking the same people over and over again. They do. The fact is that like Nikola Jokic has absolutely zero chance of winning MVP next year, and it's
that too. He won't win it no matter what.
He could have a better season, and it won't matter because people just don't want to pick the same guys over and over again. Giannis Antetokounmpo has gone better every single season he's been in the league, and he won 2 of them. And then, you know, Steph Curry last season was one of the best in the history of the game. This season's like unreal, but like he's won MVPs before. And it was like, you know, and not to say that Jokic didn't deserve it last year too. So I'm just saying, it's like, I think all NBA, sometimes people go, well, finally we can put blank as a first team because Steph had that one slip up. Here I have a reason that I can use. And that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. Well, Grant, thank you so much for coming on. This was such a fun conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for having
your
me.
Time in the airport, no less.
I mean, I really appreciate it. I think my all the people around me right now are probably want to kill me because I've, you know, been talking trash about the Dallas Mavericks this month.
You were pretty kind to them. To them.
Okay. But no, I really appreciate it. I truly love what you're doing, and I love the success you're seeing and everyone you're getting on. Just, it's great. And I'm glad I got to meet you in person over at Chase Center.
Yeah. I'm hoping whenever I come back to the Bay, I get to see you again and meet more people. So thank you so much for being on. I really, normally I'm plugging my guests and I'm saying what they do and talking, but everyone knows you, Grant. So I'm not sure if there's anything you want me to tell them, but you guys tune into Grant, follow him. I can't imagine there's anyone who is listening to me who doesn't already.
I appreciate that.
So thank you again for being on, and go Dubs next game.
Absolutely. Why not? Let's do this.
Go Dubs in 5. All right, guys. Until next time, we're out.